Today I'm going to tell a Meskwaki winter story. This is one of two that I have coming out later this year in an anthology edited by Brian Swan called Voices from Four Directions. Winter stories were traditionally told in endless cycles, night after night, all winter long. And you don't have to tell it at night, but you are supposed to tell it in winter. And I didn't want anybody to tell me that they had snakes in their bed afterwards, so I made sure that we had real winter, and I think this qualifies. Even in Iowa, this would qualify, which is where the Meskwakis are. They live in Tama County, right smack dab in the middle of the state, if you know the geography, on what's called the Meskwaki settlement. They do not have a reservation. It's land which they purchased with their own treaty money and other funds over the years, and so they have a somewhat unusual, if not nearly unique, status, although they have all federal BIA services and so forth. Truman Michelson of the Bureau of American Ethnology started going out there in 1911 and knew at that time that the people in the community were literate in their own language. And he brought pads of official government notepaper and passed them out together with number 2 pencils and said, fill these up. And we have 27,000 pages. And we have letters from Michelson saying, send more paper. And 27,000 is a lot. That's a lot of pages. We know that the Meskwakis were literate already by 1880 when there's a report from an Indian agent to that effect. The spelling is basically inspired by French at some remove, probably through the Potawatomis, ultimately from missionaries, but we don't know who actually developed the writing system that we have, which is written syllabically and therefore called a syllabary, although it's obviously based on the alphabet. Most of the things in the collection are traditional oral literature, myths and historical accounts, almost none of which has been published in any form. Michelson was only interested in ceremonial texts, and he published some of those. There are about 40 writers represented, both men and women, which is a sizable percentage of the population of the Meskwaki community in Michelson's day, which only had a few hundred people, and of course, half of those would be children. The collection is virtually an oral culture on paper, unmediated by the exigencies of dictation, and apparently guided by the collector only by very general instructions and requests. Because it's easy to write Meskwaki in the system that they have, writers wrote very fluently, and they essentially wrote the way they would speak. In fact, when they corrected themselves, they would just keep writing, and they would say, "Oh, I meant to say," and they would just keep writing. So it's very vivid in that way, and very valuable as a strict linguistic documentation. But I'm not going to talk to you about linguistics, don't worry. You'll be spared that. Although Lucy Thomason has just successfully defended a dissertation based entirely on this collection on the linguistic aspects of it at the University of Texas at Austin. The most prolific and accomplished of the Meskwaki writers was Alfred Kiyana, who was born in 1877 and died in the Spanish influenza in 1918, a young man then. He was a master storyteller who describes in the account we have from him of his childhood how he practiced telling stories when he was by himself fishing. And this is one of his stories. I should give you a little ethnographic background about things that are going to come up, just in case, and then at the end I'll have more to say. The Manitous are supernatural beings, gods or spirits, also water monsters and dragons, also snakes. People fasted to obtain sympathy and hence blessings from the Manitous. Fasting could be complete abstinence from food, but more usually it involved not eating until a certain time of day or even until the evening, as in this story. And the faster marked his face with charcoal. There's an expression, speaking together, which is used several times. And this has a special use to designate the private meetings of courtship. There's reference to red woolen broadcloth, which is a trade item which has an undyed white strip along selvage, and there's also a reference to another kind of broadcloth, which is a deep indigo. You've probably seen these in our collections, or bits of them. These are both prized trade items. Now, some people, so I understand, find traditional stories hard to follow without a lot of explanation along the way, but that sort of editing destroys the authenticity and the impact. The elusiveness and indirection of a traditional story put the listeners on the same footing as the participants in trying to figure out what's going on, though with less risk of getting it wrong. You were invited to suspend your disbelief and yield to the flow of the narration. You have no task but to sit as children, in the Meskwaki phrase, respectful and attentive, unquestioning, but mentally active. And Kiyana's title was The Married Couple, the man whose wife was wooed by a bear. This particular married couple was living somewhere, they say. The man was constantly hunting, and he was an exceptionally good hunter. And there came a day when he could not kill any deer. It seemed as if he was unable to kill any temporarily. Well, to his surprise, he found that he could not kill any from that very point on. He hunted all day long, day after day, but he did not kill even one. They had 2 children, little boys, and these lost more and more weight and were getting quite thin. In his heart, he pitied his sons. Golly, my poor sons, he would always think, they say. Eventually, they say, the man began fasting, as he pitied his children for not having meat to eat, and as from not having meat to eat, they were quite thin. They were getting nothing but dried corn to eat, and there was not anything that was cooked with it. It was nothing but dried corn. For about 2 years, they say, the family went on eating dried corn exclusively, and they continued to live right there in the same spot. One time, the woman was getting wood at a place where stood a great elm of great girth, and she tapped several times on it with a stick and said, "Come out, bear." Now, she said it just for fun. And the big elm swayed back and forth, and to her surprise, a bear actually did come out. A big bear. "Oh my, a bear," she said to it. The bear stood there. Every once in a while, she said to it, oh my, a bear." The woman was asked, "Woman, if we get married, would you be agreeable?" "Oh my, the bear is trying to speak." "Oh my, a bear," said the woman. She was very much smitten. "You should cut a piece off my belly. You could take it back. You could take back a little piece of fat. Then you could cook it for your poor children," the woman was told. And she cut a piece off the bear at his belly. "But don't tell your husband," she was told. "Oh, good idea," was the reply to the bear. And then it seems when she got back there, she cooked it for her children. The children ate heartily of the bear fat, and their stomachs were filled. That night, quite late, their father came back. What would he be bringing? He came back empty-handed, and the woman gave him dried corn. He could plainly detect the smell of something, but he could not tell what it was that he smelt. And when morning came, he left right away. For her part, the woman also did the same. She left early. And then it seems she really fooled around with the bear seriously. And from their part, the boys stayed home by themselves all day long. And in the early evening, their mother returned home. And then it seems she cooked for them hardly, and hardly they ate. By the way, the man who was fasting always slept by himself. They were very nearly caught at what they were doing when he came. They only barely finished putting away the dishes in time. The woman made confused remarks. And then the next morning, the huntsman left. And then the woman left a little later. They went along, watching where their mother went, keeping out of sight behind her. At some point over yonder, she pounded a stick several times on a great elm. It was a large bear of prodigious size. And their mother ran and grabbed him. "Jeepers, look at our mother," said one of the boys to the other. She had her arms around the bear's neck, hugging him. The bear was sitting there with his legs straight out. The mother was sleeping with him at intervals, showing no concern. A little bit of her arms could be seen in places as she lay embracing him. "Jeepers, darned if she isn't fearless of it," they said. After a while, their mother pinched up a handful of its belly and cut off a piece of fat. "Jeepers," they said. When she started walking back, they took off, running home. They came running back to the house, first one, then the other, looking from the expressions on their faces as if nothing had happened. And the expression their mother had on her face was as if nothing had happened. And as if nothing whatever had happened, she was cutting bear fat into small strips. After it was cooked, they ate it. "Our father's rival," the little boys said to each other on the sly, and they laughed. "What the dickens is the matter with these two with their rapscallion snickering?" said their mother. The woman had a gnawing suspicion, though, thinking to herself, "I wonder if I might have been seen by them unawares." And she scolded her sons sharply. After a while, they finished eating. And then one boy spoke to his mother. "Mother," he said to her, "so shall I save some for my father?" "Don't, my son. You might do your father harm," she said to her son. "So how come?" he asked her. "Why, gosh, you see, he can't eat it," she said to him. "Oh, so that's it," said the boy. "But don't tell your father, either of you," the woman said. "He might scold us." "I mean, at least you've been having some meat to eat," she said to her little sons. "All right," said the boys. "And another thing, don't spit in the fire," she told her sons. That night the younger one said, "Older brother," he said, "let's play riddles." "All right," said the older one. They were saying all sorts of different things. And after a while their mother stopped scolding them. But at first she kept telling them, "Go to sleep." She would say to them, "You should consider your father. Don't you see, if he should happen to dream of something, we'll be having meat to eat. If he has a vision of any game animals." At some point, after one of them had a big mouthful of spit, he spat in the fire, and the fire blazed up. And they kept spitting in the fire. And after some time, they went to sleep. Very early in the morning, the father was trying to start the fire with no success, and they woke up. "Here, see, this is how it ought to be done," one said to the father. And he spat on the fire. The fire blazed up. When he spat on it twice, it burned with an extremely strong flame. "Well, look at that," thought the man. He was convinced that his son had Manitou power. He thought it meant that he had been blessed with the power to do something. Or else, he thought, he probably is indeed a bit of a Manitou. But the wife in her heart was scared. Only when nothing was said to them did the woman say to her husband, as if nothing had happened, These boys don't ever help you when you hunt." "That's certainly true," said the man. After her husband had departed, she said to her sons, "I'm off now to strip some basswood bark." "All right," they replied to her, and the woman left. Actually, they once again watched their mother from behind as they went. When their mother got over there, all she did was go straight to the big elm, and she tapped on it. Their mother looked as if she was ready to catch the bear on the fly. "Look at your mother," said one of the boys to the other. After fooling around for a while, the ones they were watching sat there quietly, and they began to speak together. "All right, woman," the woman was told, "go and untie your husband's sacred bundle. And then in it, woman, and then the red stone pipe that is in it, you must bring back," the woman was told. "And also you must dress up," the woman was told. "You must wear the red woolen broadcloth as a blanket, and you must come back with the fine broadcloth on as a skirt," the woman was told. "Oh, good idea," she replied. She went home. Finding her children gone, she whistled for them. After some time, one of the boys answered, "What?" The bear was frightened by the cry, and in no time the bear was hanging onto the tree halfway up. And then they went to her, running in from different directions. "Well, where have you been?" she asked them. "We've been hunting birds," they told their mother. She pointed out a different direction for them to go in. "Don't go that way," she told them. "You must go up the river in this direction." "Not down the river," she told them. "All right," they said to her. And then it seems she hurried them off. But they just pretended and, taking their time, turned back. Finally, the woman scolded them sharply, and they left slowly. And in time, she could no longer hear them. But by then, they say, they had already arrived back on the run near their lodge. And there they saw their mother combing her hair. They lay there not far away, and after some time she went in. When she went in, they ran up right close. After quite some time, their mother came out, and she was dressed in her finest clothes. She was painted on the whole of her cheeks with red ochre, and she was dressed in her finest clothes. And then they went along behind, hiding from her, running along behind. Over there they found the bear up the tree. He kept peering out up in the tree. And when the bear saw their mother, it jumped down from right where it was. Then their mother said, "Oh, my bear, you might have hurt yourself, bear. Oh, my bear." The bear smoked profusely, using the red stone pipe. After he had smoked, he began fooling around with the woman. They used the red woolen broadcloth as a blanket, and they slept with each other. The bear's feet were sticking out as he lay, and as he fixed his covers, he accidentally tore the red broadcloth with his claw. The woman didn't think it was anything to worry about at all. The boys, meanwhile, crept over close to where their feet were, as fast as they could hold themselves, and they pinched the bear's heel, they say, and he didn't react at all, as if nothing at all was wrong. And then next they tickled him on the foot, but as if nothing at all was wrong, all he did was shift his foot restlessly. Finally, they say, they stuck a sharp wooden arrow in his heel. Only then did he jump. In fact, he even leapt right to his feet, and their mother had the blanket yanked off of her. Now, remember, the bear had already had part of his belly sliced off. "What the hell took a great whacking bite out of me?" said the bear. "You mean something bit you?" the woman said. Pretty soon the bear lay down again, and after the bear was settled comfortably, he began to be tickled on his foot again. He paid no attention at all to it. And then at some point he was slashed across the heel. He threw his sleeping partner aside. The woman was absolutely terrified. She'd been tossed like a small object. She lay weeping. The bear was scared. And then the bear tried to comfort the woman. Here the bear was feeling pain as well in his heel. After quite some time, they say, the woman was agreeable. The bear kissed and kissed. "So help me, it was just because it hurt me right to the quick that I almost smashed you up, girl," declared the bear. "Besides, if you're agreeable, we could get married," the bear continued. "Well, you have to agree, it's as if we're married as it is," replied the woman. "So then, for as long as we may live, we'll speak together," the woman declared. "Oh, absolutely, and your words sound nice when you say that to me," the woman was told. "Oh my, you didn't expect me to say anything bad about you, did you, bear?" was the friendly reply the bear got. And after that, "Oh my, so help me, what a bear." He was delighted. And she would eat me if her husband kills me, he thought. But for now, I'm secretly married to her, thought the bear. That evening, he presented some fat of his belly, After you're alone tomorrow, you must cook it for our children, the woman was told. All right, said the woman. Their sons came back late, and her husband came back even later. Early in the morning, the woman finished her cooking, and after daubing his face, the man left, going off to hunt. But those boys, it is said, got bored with them and didn't follow her over there anymore. Sometime later, the woman realized that she was pregnant. Oh dear, she thought. After she had been pregnant a little while, one of the boys told their father everything. Father, I can tell you this, our mother's been sleeping with a bear, he said to their father. What's more, she's been doing that for quite a long time, he said to his father. So that's it, was the reply received from him. He told them all the particulars. Also, she takes out the redstone pipe that's in our sacred bundle, and the bear smokes with it. And for her part, she dresses up in her finest clothes, and after she dresses up, she goes to him. At first, they always fool around, and after they fool around, they begin sleeping with each other, the boy told their father. And then the next day, he went out to hunt. Sometime later, he came back. And then he said to his wife, well, wife, I guess I might as well go spend the night over yonder. All right, the woman replied. She rejoiced in her heart. Now we really have a time, the woman thought, and he left. The man really did go a long ways off, and he really did sleep over there. And then the bear was taken near there, and the bear made the children sleep by burning something in the fire. And sleeping with a woman for real, the bear thought of himself as very much a person. After midnight, the man set out, and he killed a deer, one deer. And when it was nearly dawn, he arrived where their house was. The bear was sound asleep, sleeping with a woman, and they had their arms around each other's necks. The man went in, and there before his eyes, his wife had a sleeping partner. She was sleeping with a bear. He saw them without them knowing, and he put the fire out again and went a little ways off. When dawn came, the bear came out. And when it had gone a little ways off, he went and killed it. The bear was killed. He carried it a long ways off on his back and arrived with it where the deer was. At noon, he came home with the deer on his back. The children rejoiced at his return. Seems you've killed game, she said to her husband. Oh, gee, I really kill game on a large scale, said the man. So I believe I'll start to kill game now. But I know this much, I killed a bear too, he told her. Seems you're making unusual kills, she said to him. So then, I'm going to go after it, he said to her. All right, said the woman. He left. And as soon as the man left, the woman left. Expectantly, but to no avail, she pounded several times with the stick, expecting to no avail that he would come out. Oh, he must be fast asleep, she thought. Meanwhile, when the man arrived back at their house, only his sons were there, roasting a bit of something for themselves on a spit. At the same time, no attention had been paid to the deer. It lay there exactly as he had left it. Just when the fat had all been cut in strips, the woman arrived back. Seems you're back already, she said to her husband. Yes, said he. When he asked her, well, where have you been? My bowels are really loose, and I've been staying over yonder where I go to the bathroom, she said to him. So that's it, said the man. I thought rather that you might be looking for bears when you were doing your pounding on the tree, he said to her. So help me, I was just trying the sound of it for fun, she said to her husband. So that's it, said to her. And then they always ate well. And whenever he went anywhere, she would instantly run over to that place. On one such occasion, he said to his wife, this time I'm going far away to hunt, adding, I'm off. All right, said the woman. She had a pleasant demeanor as her husband left. I'm going to make a quick trip for a load of dry sticks, she said to their young sons, and she left. Bear, come out, bear, she said. She hit the tree, making it go donk, donk, donk. After some time, she saw her husband running by. He did that to her just for fun. Hardly she collected dead wood and took home a backload of it. And she ran into him coming the other way. So help me, I forgot my stone-headed arrow, she said to her. And then, it is said, the man went and climbed the tree, and he jumped into the bear hole. He was naked. And the woman went back over there in a flash. Bear, come out. Here I am. I've brought myself to you again, said the woman to the bear. Please come, she said to him. It'll be just as if you're seeing your husband when you see me, he told her. Come here, please, the woman told him. You'll no longer see me the way you saw me. Rather, I'll look only like your husband, the woman was told. Come on now, come here, the bear was told. Okay, the man as bear replied. When he came out, it seemed to her that he looked just exactly like her husband. Oh my, what a bear, she said to him. But of course, it was her husband. So what do you think of your husband? He asked her. Oh my, what a bear, she said to him and put her arms around his neck. Well, I hate him. You're the one I'm always thinking about, she said to him. But him I hate, as well as his children, the man was told. As for you, though, I wish I could live with you. Well, what if you stay here where I live? The woman was asked. Oh, good ideas, replied the woman. Now tell me, you're not married? The woman asked. No, so help me, I'm a bachelor, the woman was told. But he was her husband, of course. To tell the truth, in his heart, the man was very angry. All right, then, come on, climb up, the woman was told. And she climbed up and jumped in. After she jumped in, she was told, I'll go get some grass for our bedding. She was thinking, oh my, I'm going to live in a tree. After a while, she heard him come back, and grass began dropping inside, mixed in with pieces of bark. She was arranging it with care, as if it was all completely normal. A bit later, there was another huge amount. These are for our covers. I'll bring 2 more loads, and that's it, she was told. Sure enough, after some time, she heard the sound of the stuff as it was dumped in. It's what we do when we're newly married, she was told. His words were being directed up above. Oh my, what a bear, she thought. All right, come here, bear, she said to him. Wait a bit. Well, where would you expect me to go? I'm coming up there, he told her. Now, she was having more and more trouble breathing. When I get up there, I'll tend to you. I guess it's because you're smothering that you're calling me to hurry. The woman was told. Yes, she said. Ah, that's about as much as I would put in there, if that's okay. And now we'll be toasty, the woman was told. Tell me now, what's involved in being toasty, bear? She said. One is made toasty. You'll be made toasty, I should say, she was told. At that very moment, the grass was set on fire. The man departed. Presently, however, the woman realized that it was burning. Not too far away, there was another bear, they say, and he ran over there and pulled the woman out. When the woman came to, she found another bear tending to her, and she recovered. It was your husband that set your place on fire. The reason he did that to you is that you behaved badly, the woman was told. So then, from now on, don't do that, the woman was told. The baby she was pregnant with was taken out of her. And this baby of yours I shall accordingly take care of here, she was told. The bears will have that baby for their chief. And that man, when his wife came into the house, said to her, hello, as if nothing had happened. The woman cried, never again as long as I live will I speak together with anyone else, the woman said. And she put her arms around her husband. Toasty will be your name, she said to her husband. All right, said the man. You certainly did a bad thing, getting involved, as it seems, in being wooed by a game animal, he said to her. That's certainly true, said the woman. Well, never again, she declared. That's the end of it. One doesn't know where to start, but let me point out one footnote about translation. There's a word toasty in the translation, which translates a word that the woman doesn't understand. And so these are the hardest words to translate, the ones that the people in the story don't understand. In fact, it's not found anywhere else, and speakers today don't know what it means. So the translation is intended to suggest the implied ambiguity. There's also a place where the woman says, "I've brought myself to you." It's a slightly mannered expression, and I wondered, why all of a sudden this shows up. In the Kickapoo version of this story, there's a song. Songs are always nice. We don't know very much about myth songs. We only have it as written out by William Jones, but it would be something like "Geshimatta niawi kepietone, niawi kepietone." Great Bruin, some fancy word for bear. I bring myself to you, I bring myself to you. So it's the same expression. It makes you think that the Meskwaki tellings used to have this song in them, or used to have a similar turn of phrase. So that's kind of interesting. The question people always ask is, what is this story about? Pick any story, that's the question. To answer the question, we need to look at two different things. One is, as well as the text itself, of course, the variants of this story told by the Meskwaki and related groups, and also the general question of the general themes of winter stories, which is another aspect of the context in which this exists, of course. This story, the Kiyana story, is an example of a tale type known as the bear paramour in Native American folklore. They always have these slightly old-fashioned names for tale types. There are at least two other Meskwaki versions, as well as ones from a number of other Algonquian traditions. In all the other versions, the husband forces his wife to eat the slain bear lover. Except in Algonquian traditions in the Northeast, in which the wife succeeds in eating the bear thanks to her own Manitou power, the husband in other tellings kills his wife by forcing the bear meat down her throat or by clubbing her when she cannot finish. The story may then connect up with something else. In one Meskwaki version, the slain wife's head becomes a rolling skull. The rolling skull is a conventional ogre, and this rolling skull then kills her husband and chases after her sons. In the Kickapoo version we have, the tale segues into the lodge boy and thrown away tale type, these being for the Meskwaki, the manifestation of the diminutive monster slayers that are found widely in North America. And in the Menominee version, so here's a third one, the bear paramour tale type shows up in the culture hero cycle with different characters. So the question of what the story is about must be put together with the question of, why did Kiyana change the story to have what we used to be able to call a Hollywood ending, in which the husband and the wife are reconciled? And why did he give his story a title that presents it as being about the man rather than about the woman, whose activities fill most of the narrative? Remember, it's the married couple, the man whose wife was wooed by a bear. So, that Kiyana did indeed refashion the story is shown by the traces his telling still contains of the plot reflected in the other Meskwaki versions. For example, remember, the bear muses to himself at one point, "And she would eat me if her husband kills me." But the bear is consumed off stage in Kiyana's telling, and the force feeding that's foreshadowed in this thought of the bear never even takes place. Also, it's explicit in the other Meskwaki versions and others that the wife's most serious offense is the desecration of her husband's sacred bundle by the use of items from it in her assignations. But in Kiyana's telling, this desecration is played down, which makes it more reasonable for it to be left unatoned for. All three Meskwaki versions mention a red broadcloth blanket, but only in the other two does the woman take this explicitly from the wrapping of her husband's sacred bundle and wear it as a skirt. In Kiyana's version, the bear smokes the Catlinite pipe from the bundle, but the text seems purposely vague about the provenance of the red broadcloth which she She and the bear uses a robe or blanket, and also the second broadcloth that she does wear is a skirt. This is another conscious change. So for Kiyana, the story is not about desecrating a sacred bundle. Now, winter stories. The events in winter stories took place in ancient times before things were as they are today. Human beings were a tiny band deep in the forest primeval. They were beset by monsters and malign humanoids. Their culture and their spiritual powers were not yet fully developed. It was a world of ambiguities in which firm lines between human and non-human and between animal species did not exist. To make the world safe and livable for mankind, these lines had to be drawn. The bringing of order to the world in this way is one of the principal themes in the oral literature of the Meskwakis and other Native Americans. This is one of the things that the culture heroes and their helpers do in their function as transformers, transforming the ancient world into the modern, livable world. In fashioning a new ending that severs the story from its traditional continuation, Kiyana has taken it out of the larger tradition and focused on one particular theme. So here's the question: what is that theme? Well, here are the clues he leaves. Here are the questions he leaves for us as clues. Why does the man's hunting fail in the first place? We can tell from what the bear knows and does that he has been planning things for some time. The logic of winter stories requires the inference that he has brought these events about by the exercise of his magical powers, the bear. I'm talking. So it's not just a convenient happenstance. That will never do as an explanation. Why does the man's hunting success resume when it does? The enchantment of the man is broken at the exact moment when the bear has slept with a woman in her own house. As the story says, sleeping with a woman for real, the bear thought of himself as very much a person. The bear no longer talks about the woman's sons as your children, but has started to refer to them as our children, as if he were their stepfather. We infer that the previously indifferent higher powers have decided that the bear's delusion of actually being a human is a transgression that is now seriously disruptive of the order of things, at least in the reordered world to come. And the higher powers act to restore the man's powers and through him to bring this violation of order to an end. For Kiyana, then, the story is about the bear's violation of the cosmically ordained boundary between people and animals. This is why his title for the story presents it as about the man. He is emblematic of wronged humanity and thus the one the story is really about. But Kiyana does not recast the story explicitly and from top to bottom from this point of view. He lets the clues appear serially without describing the husband as comprehending them or, for the most part, even noticing them. In fact, in the entire story, no thoughts that the man may have about his wife are reported. Only his thoughts about his sons. And after the bear accidentally tears the red broadcloth with his claw, Kiyana simply finesses the follow-up scene of discovery. He thus both heightens narrative tension and forces the listener to take the point of view of the husband. He's going to find it, what's going to do? It's intriguing to consider the possibility that the changes Kiyana has wrought on the tradition reflect, at least in part, a response to literacy and the possibilities and limitations of the new medium. Writing stories down may lead to the rearrangement of traditional modular components into discrete tales with more concentrated thematic focus. But Kiyana's stories are still marvelous examples of oral literature written down. Thank you. So now you can stop being Meskwaki children and you can ask questions if you want to. Adrian?
It's not clear to me why this is a winter story rather than a summer story, a spring story, or some other kind of story.
The winter stories that happen that are true, okay, by the way, we're in trouble. Stories that are believed to have happened to people that we know or that people we know knew or people that they knew are You might call history stories. They have a special name. They're called Achimonan, and those can be told anytime. But winter stories, which have a different name, they're called Atesohkakonak, and they're of the animate gender rather than the inanimate gender, which is very key for Algonquian languages. They concern the events of the ancient world, the cosmological myths, if you will, and they can only be told in winter, so that's why they're called winter stories. And in Meskwaki English is where this expression comes from. So in Meskwaki English, these are called winter stories. In the anthropological literature, they're usually called sacred stories. And the reason they can't be told in winter is because the earth manitous have to be asleep. Otherwise, they would be very upset because, as we've just learned, what the stories is about is how the manitous were, knocked down so that people could take over. So they don't like to hear that. And if you hear winter stories outside of winter, you will get snakes in your bed and bed bugs and lots of other horrible things, which are the manifestations of the manitous of the earth, which are still around.